I kind of like life to be all about me. I want to do things my own way. I want to get what I want. But when I became a Christian, I began to realize, I don't think that's really how this works. Now my life was going to have to be about Jesus and not so much about me. Today we're going to talk about the disciple John, who actually was Jesus's best friend. But when John began following Jesus, he learned the same thing I did, that life was going to be different from then on if he was going to follow his Savior. Join us today as we continue in the Gospel of Luke and learn valuable lessons on what it actually means to truly follow Christ. Cheyenne got a job. For those of you that don't know my daughter, she's 18. She has a job at Payway now at 67th Avenue, so you can go visit her. But I realized, you know how we've been talking about how the Bible, or when Jesus comes in our life, he changes us, but he usually changes us to the people that are around us like last. So I realized this at Payway, that she gets a job, we go in there, and so we all I laughed when she said she was getting this job because when we order from Payway, it's like this. Hi, I'd like spicy chicken with 1/4 of the spice with no vegetables, but I do want snap peas and I want half this and half. And so I laughed. I said, someone's going to do that to you. So of course, Dusty, her brother, comes up and says, so he gives her this whole long list. I want this and this. I want it mild. Okay, so she takes all of her orders. She reads it back. And Dusty said, Cheyenne, did you get my mild? And she said, no. You just need to deal with it, okay? And I'm like, okay, don't ever treat the other customers like that. That's not going to be good. So she's kind of cute. But it's weird when you, we've just always bought them stuff. So now she has this bank account, and of course she doesn't make that much. So let's say she had $150. And she's so excited because now she gets to go and buy clothes with it. But she had a friend that they were goofing around by her car, and he jumps onto the car to slide over, and it smashes the hood down, and now it's kind of destroyed. So we said, well, honey, we'll help you pay for it, but you need to pay for half of it. And so she got a price. It's $450. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's like 2 weeks worth of pay. We're like, yeah, welcome to the real world. So I was talking to Micah, our older son, and he said, Mom, I learned this when we were kids. He said, I realized that you made Sean pay for a little accident that he got into from his job. So if I just never got a job, I'd just be able to say, sorry, Mom, I don't have a job. And so he never got a job, and now I understand why. He's kind of the smartest of them all. Part 4 of a series called People Like Us. If you don't understand what that means, it doesn't mean you can like us on Facebook, even though you can. And it doesn't mean that people actually like us, which hopefully they do. But the premise to this whole series is that we're talking about the disciples and how they were people just like us. They had the same issues that we do. They had the same doubts. They were not these Bible scholars that Jesus picked. They didn't have all this compassion. They weren't completely loving to people. They had confusion and fear and all the things that you and I have. But they had an encounter with Jesus, and it radically changed their life, which is what I want us to understand, that happens to us too. So the reason why we do this is so that we can understand what they've struggled with, so that when you and I are faced with those things, we don't fall apart. We're like, God hates me because I'm doubting him. No, he doesn't. He loves you, and he's going to work with you through all of that. I love the fact by studying these guys that Jesus never just kicked him out of the nest. He never said, you know what, you just sinned one too many times, you're out. Or, you know what, you didn't understand that, and I'm sick and tired of telling you that, you're out. He never did that. He came alongside of them and said, look, I want to work with you. I love you. I used to feel that way all the time. I used to feel like God was always mad at me. I didn't read my Bible enough. I didn't pray enough. And it really threw me into this depression. And I said, I don't want to do that anymore. And I finally had to come to the grips that Jesus is like, I want to work with you. I'm not against you. And so when I got that, then it changed my relationship with him, and now I'm not so worried that he's angry with me. I know he's just trying to teach me something in my life. So The plan was to go through the last two people, John and Judas, and we were going to do that today. We're going to make it through John. We'll do Judas next week. And the reason why we're doing this is because of this word disciple, because I'm trying to get us away from this American Christianity that people are being taught out there versus what it means to be a true disciple, follower of Jesus. And there's 253 verses in the Bible that say the word disciple in the New Testament. So I started going through them and I was like, okay, if it says the disciples did this, then I'm going to assume that that's what we should be doing. The disciples said this. Whatever they did is kind of what we should model and we should do after that too. So we're going to take this series for another couple weeks and go through a lot of the places that says what the disciples did so that we have a good idea that says, if I say I'm a follower of Jesus, if I say I'm a disciple of Christ, what should my life look like? And that's where we're going to head for the next couple of weeks. I think it's easy in this day and age in America to say I'm a Christian. It's not so easy when we figure this out to say I'm a disciple. There's a huge difference, and I want us to get that today. So I like the Spider-Man movie, and my favorite part of it was when the uncle sits him, Spider-Man, I can't remember his name. Peter, what is his name? Peter Parker? Okay. Sat him in the car and said, everyone knows this, with much power comes much responsibility. And I want us to realize that when Jesus comes in our life, we have the power of God living with us, in us, but now there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that. I was reminded of that this week. I was out talking to Adam when I was walking one day. I came out, he's at the front desk, and we were talking about when I first came to Rio Vista. I never even knew there was such a place. Like Dusty was playing basketball, and he showed this to me, and I'm like, oh, who has a cool place like this? This is the neatest thing I've ever seen. So I signed up, pay my little money each month, but I walked on the track in my flip-flops, okay? I owned a pair of tennis shoes, I think from the 1800s, okay? For those of you that, I hate shoes. I especially hate tennis shoes. I actually found them in my closet. They were Reeboks, and they have little diamond studs on it, okay? My kids are like, would you please stop embarrassing me and get a new pair of tennis shoes? I won't do it because I hate shoes that much, and I'm not spending money on them. So anyway, when I was up there walking my flip-flops, I walked out, and she said, and Adam said, ma'am, they didn't know me, you can't do that. You have to wear tennis shoes. Okay, I'm like, here's my response. Are you joking? Like, because I really thought they were, and they were like, no, we're really not. Now, at that moment, everything in me wanted to say, I pay good money for this place. You can't tell me what I can and can't wear. This is ridiculous. I'm out of here. Okay, that was going on in my head, okay? Thankfully, that did not come out of my mouth, because 6 months later, we would go to them and say, hey, we would love to have our women's Bible study here. Okay, which would have been a tad bit embarrassing. We would have had to have it someplace else. So my point to this is that people are watching us when we say that we are Christians or when we say that we are followers of Christ. So there's a lot of responsibility. I learned this. Dusty, I told you, is my 15 and a half. He has his driving permit now. And so we were going to Flagstaff a couple weeks ago. And so I thought, well, this will be easy. It'll just be a long drive up there, and he'll be good to go on driving. So we head up there. Of course, it's the Memorial Day, Labor Day weekend. Traffic, semis. He's going in and out of these mountains at 80 miles an hour. Okay, I'm thinking like, dear Jesus, I wasn't planning on coming home this soon, so you're going to have to really protect us on this. But he decides to pull into this lane, and what he doesn't see right next to me is this little red car in his blind spot. Now, he's going 80. So I tried not to scream, but I was like, what are you doing? And he's like all freaked out, and he told me afterwards, he said, Mom, you scared me so bad, I don't ever want to drive again. And I'm like, no, I need you to drive. But I said, here's the deal, Dusty, and you've got to get this. Driving is the funnest thing that will ever happen in your life. It is so fun. It's fun for you. It's exciting. You have this freedom. You can go take kids to movies. You can go on dates, whatever. Like, it's a fun thing. But you have got to know that with that privilege, there is more responsibility than you will ever know in your life. Like, you will be driving kids. If you get in an accident and kill them, bad deal. Okay, really, really bad deal. If I drive with you and kill me, like, and then your life, like, let's talk about, it's tons of responsibility to get behind this wheel. And he needed to know that it's not fun and games, and it's really, really serious. And I think the same thing works with us as followers of Christ, that we have to know that, yes, it is very fun to be a Christian. Most of you women, like, you love your Christian friends, and there's fellowship, and yay, we get to go to lunch, and it's so cool, and talk about Jesus. And we can be joyful in the midst of trials. We get to go to heaven. Our sins are forgiven. All that's like the coolest thing in the whole world. I know God's going to provide. I know he's going to take care of me. So all of that is the fun side of being a Christian. But then there's this responsibility side that I don't think a lot of Americanized Christianity that's what we're getting. American Christianity instead of biblical disciple, what it means to follow Christ. And there's this big chasm, and I want to talk about that for the next couple weeks, because I want us to know that as followers of Christ, we're responsible for a lot of things. Look at, in your handout, Matthew 28:18. We're right in the middle of the series in Luke, where Jesus picks his 12 disciples. When he ascends back to heaven, this is what he says that the disciples' job is. Matthew 28:18 through 20. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples," not Americanized Christians, "of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you, and I am with you even to the end of the age." So if that's what he commissioned the disciples to do, then that's kind of our job too, to learn as much as we can about the Bible, about Jesus, about who God is, so that we can teach other people so that they can know him, and it just snowballs from there. So that is kind of like our big job. Now, today I want to talk about John, because I learned a lot. I had a really weird day, Monday I guess it was, and everything really seemed discouraging. Ministry seemed discouraging, business discouraging. I just kind of felt blah. And John helped me this week, because I remembered something that I learned from this lesson that I'll share at the very end. So let's talk about John. John was the youngest of all the disciples of Jesus that he picked. He was probably 15 or 16. I have a 15-year-old, so I kind of can't imagine that Dusty would just up and follow someone like that, but it's kind of cool. He was 15 or 16 when he started. He was the same disciple that wrote the Gospel of John. So when you see Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he wrote that. He wrote 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John back towards Revelation, and he wrote Revelation. So what we get to see with him is how he started out in his life and how he finished in his life. And when we see that, it's like, oh, it's kind of like our cookie thing last week. I start out as dough, I end up a cookie. That's just the way that this whole thing works. Now, this is how he starts out. Look at Luke 9:51 through 56. When the days were approaching for his ascension, he was determined to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead of him, and they went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. So his disciples went ahead, okay. But they did not receive him because he was traveling towards Jerusalem. When his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" Okay, now imagine that. Now here's a 15-year-old saying, okay, they didn't do what I want them to do, so we're just going to rain down fire. And look what Jesus says. He turned and rebuked them and said, "You do not know what kind of spirit you are of." Like, who are you? For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. So then they went on. So when John first starts out, he and his brother James are called the sons of thunder. So that should give us an idea of who they were. They were just kind of loud and boisterous, and no one's going to tell me what to do, and no one's going to talk to me that way. And that's how he starts out his Christian life, which is kind of this idea that it's all about me. It's all about my happiness, and that's where a lot of people start. Now, We also see this in Matthew 20 in your handout, 20 verse 20. Then his mom gets involved. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee, which is James and John's mother, came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making a request. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" And she said to him, "Command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine may sit on your right and on your left." So James and John have this nice, sweet little mommy who wants to get some really important, a hierarchy involved here. When Jesus sits on his throne, then she wants her sons to be there because, hey, they're following him. So she expects something in return. And what's interesting to me is that you never see the boys coming back and saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Mom, please, we're not doing this. We're not following Jesus for what we can get. We're following him because we know he's the only way to God and we want to serve him and love him." We don't see that from James and John at the beginning. We only see that they just kind of go along with their mom. Now, I think that we get this Americanized Christianity because somewhere along the line we're being told things that maybe aren't that true. So when we first come to Jesus, people will say to us, "Come to Jesus and he'll answer all your prayers." And they'll quote a verse, "Ask and you shall receive." You're like, "Well, that's so cool. Jesus, I would like a Porsche." Okay. "Jesus, I'm kind of mad at this person. Would you destroy them?" "Jesus, I would love to win the lottery, so I'm going to pray that I win the lottery, and I will give you 10%. I will keep my 90. And I always think that's funny. I'm always thinking, what would we do if God said, "I'll let you win, you give me 90, and you keep the 10, and I wonder what would happen there." But for some reason, we think that being a Christian is all about me. It's all about us. And I want to stop that thinking right here. And I think where it came from is when we were in Sunday school. If you grew up in Sunday school, you can remember this. You're 6, and your Sunday school teacher says, "How many of you want to go to heaven? Raise your hand." "Me, I want to go to heaven." "Okay. How many of you want Jesus to answer prayers?" "Me." "How many want to get healed?" "Me." "How many want your sins forgiven?" "Me." Okay, so suddenly, growing up from a young age, we think that it's all about me, when in fact, it really isn't. It's about him, wherever he leads us, whatever he calls us to do. And we're not being taught that much stuff. Now, what the disciples learned is all those things are cool. Yes, my sins are forgiven. Yes, Jesus answered prayers. Yes, we get to go to heaven. But I think what they're going to learn really quick is that is absolutely not what being a disciple of Jesus is all about. We see the rest with when Jesus is talking to the mom. But Jesus answered, verse 22, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink?" And they said to him, "We're able." Now you can just picture Jesus at the time. Now think about this. At this particular time, everyone loves Jesus. He's like the rock star of the town. Everyone wants to know him. James and John are like the little, not groupies, but the inner circle, and they get to go, hang out with Jesus and go to lunch with him, and it's all really cool right then. But Jesus comes in and says, "Are you going to be able to take this cup, which I'm about ready to bear?" And they had no idea what that meant. They're like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." Well, here's what it meant. People will hate you because of me. People might beat you and scourge you and put you on a cross, which is how a lot of these disciples ended up dying. Okay, are you prepared? Do you even know what it means to follow me? And what Jesus is doing to them is the same thing he's doing to us. Now, we don't have crosses and all that, but if the United States ever gets to the point of are you going to stand up for your faith, or are you going to go to jail? What's going to happen to us? Because we always thought Christianity was about me. And it's not. I want us to know it's about him. And it's about saying, "God, I will serve you wherever." If that means in a jail cell, in a cancer ward, wherever, I'm yours. That's the difference that we're trying to get to. Jesus wants us, along with the disciples, to count the cost. Now, my parents watch this on Roku. And so I can just picture my dad and mom because they're going to laugh at this story. Because I have to tell you my dove story. I realized this the other morning. Rob and I were sitting out on the patio, and I could hear guns shooting around us. And it dawned on me. I said, "It's dove season, isn't it?" And Rob's like, "Yep, dove season." So I had this memory when I was a kid. Somehow, for being the princess that I am, I don't know what made me think I want to learn how to shoot a gun and go dove hunting with my dad. Okay, so he puts me in a class. I learn all about the rifle and how it works and all that, and then it's the morning to go dove hunting. You put on these little, I don't know what they're called, belt things, and they have pockets in them, and kind of like aprons, so that when you kill the birds, you put them in there. Okay, whatever. So we go out, and it's like Lisa gets her gun out. She's so excited. Shoot my first bird, and it's like, now go get it. And if it's still living, flopping around, pull its head off. I'm like, well, okay. So I go running out there, and of course it's flopping around. I'm like, pull the head off and stick it. Okay, yeah, I know, it's horrifying. It's horrifying, I get that, okay. And then once we get all the dove, then we come home. Okay, now I'm kind of a picky eater. And now we have to give the dove to my mom, and she cooks it, and now it's like, now you get to eat it. I'm like, okay, first and last time I ever went dove hunting, but nobody told me that there was a cost to dove hunting. And that cost was you got to pull heads off of little creatures and then you got to eat them. Okay, that's a bad deal. So never shot a gun in my life after that. Wouldn't even know how to now. Okay, so, but it made me realize that I went into something without realizing what the cost was to doing something like that. And it's fine when you have a gun in your hand and a certificate, and it's fine when you and I get baptized and whatever. But after that, we've got to sit down and say, okay, what does this mean to be a follower of Christ? I love Stephen Curtis Chapman, his song, and he wrote it, it's in your handout right there. He says, he learned this from this song, and I love it. He says, how could I stand here and watch the sun rise, follow the mountains where they touch the sky, ponder the vastness and the depths of the sea, and think for a moment the point of it all was to make much of me. Because I'm just a whisper, and you are the thunder, and I want to make much of you, Jesus. I want to make much of your love. I want to live today to give you the praise that you are so worthy of. I want to make much of your mercy and much of your cross. And here's the key. I give you my life, take it, and let it be used to make much of you. And that's what being a disciple means. It means, God, I am giving you my life, and now you can do whatever you feel like you want to do with me. And that's counting the cost. No longer is our life about me and what's going to make me happy. Now it's moved to, God, how can I serve you best? And we're going to see this with all this. Now, when we find John, we see him when he's 15, and then we see him when he's 90, okay? And he's had 70 years of following and being a disciple of Christ. And tradition holds that at the end of his life, he was boiled in oil because of his faith in Jesus, which is, I'm going to assume, pretty painful. He was preaching. They said, yeah, we're just kind of done with your preaching. So they put him in a big vat of oil, and they boiled it. Now, I was making tacos one day, and painfully enough, I somehow took the taco shell, and it hit something, and all of the hot grease went all over my stomach and all over my arms. And I was so shocked, and I thought, I'm going to die, okay? I had no idea the pain of it. So anyway, I understand this oil thing on a very minimal level. So I can't imagine now if I was boiled in oil, I would kind of be a little annoyed with God. I'd be like, serious, God? Could you not have stopped that? But John doesn't care. He knows he's got one purpose in his life. And if Jesus allows him to be boiled in oil or whatever, he doesn't care. He's like, my life is yours, whatever that means. So on the island in Revelation, he gets the book of Revelation on this island. So now he's boiled in oil. That doesn't work very well. Now they ship him off to this island called Patmos, and it's right off of, it's literally a little island off of the big islands. And so now he's stuck out there by himself, and where we find him is he's on this island worshiping. He's saying, God, I just love you. Jesus, you're so awesome. And I'm thinking, serious? You just were boiled in oil. And so what I want us to see is that as we see John growing in his faith, we see him going from, it's all about me, to, you know what, God, whatever circumstances come in my life, whatever. My husband leaves me. I get laid off on my job. I get cancer. You fill in the blank, whatever yours is. Whatever the circumstances, I know you're in control. And I'm just fine with it. I'm just not going to worry about it because my life is yours to do whatever you please, because whatever that looks like, it's going to reach more people for you. And every one of us have different stories. There's a little girl, if you go to CCV, you'll know, Katie Wagner. And I don't know if she's still in high school or she's probably, I don't know how old she is now, but I think it was a couple years ago she got cancer. And we're talking a young high school, beautiful girl, and she gets cancer. And she's been struggling with it, but I'm telling you, she has the best attitude, and she loves Jesus regardless of whatever. And I found this on Facebook the other day. Her mom or dad, one of them, wrote it. And they said, Katie always wanted to be a missionary in Africa. The summer she found out she had cancer. But her parents told her, God has something so much bigger. Okay, now, if Cheyenne or Dusty or any of they're the ones at home, I found out they had cancer, would I be like, thank you, Jesus, for giving my daughter this? But Katie's parents said, when we had her, we said, God, she's yours. Do whatever you want to further your gospel, because this is what you gave us her for this purpose. And I thought, that's brilliant that they can pray this for their child. So I think that her story has touched so many lives right now and so many people, and then it just went into remission, and then I think it's just back now again, and it's kind of a really sad deal. But it's not sad when you put God in the equation, because God's using her in mighty ways, whether she lives through it or whether she doesn't. And the parents know, God, our lives are yours, whatever. So we've got to get that that's what being a disciple is. It's not about, God, my life is falling apart. No, it's about, okay, my life's falling apart. Now what do you want to do with it? I wrote this, okay, God, let's roll. And then it dawned on me, today is 9/11. And I realized that Todd Beamer, when he got on that plane, never in his wildest dreams thought that his mission in life would end there, and how the gospel was furthered because of his death on that plane with these terrorists. He didn't think that. You don't think you're going to get a divorce. You don't think something bad's going to happen or your kid's going to be a drug addict. No one knows that. But when those things hit, we can be assured as a disciple of Christ that he wants to use those things in our life. Now, all right, I hope that helped today as we are beginning to see what a disciple of Jesus should really start looking like. We will continue talking about John next week.